Another thing you should know about when talking about the internet and the World Wide Web is that there's this phrase Web 2.0, Web 2.0. So if you hear that, you need to know what that is. And you might be asking yourself, well, what is Web 1.0 and is there a Web 3.0? And indeed, there is a Web 1.0, and some people say that there's a Web 3.0 that is coming. And that's just the way things seem to go in software and in life. One thing builds into another. Everything has a life cycle. You know, Web 1.0 was born, it rose, it died. Web 2.0 kind of also was born, it rose, and it'll eventually die, and there'll be something called Web 3.0. Just like we have 4 generations of computers, and now we're kind of, people are saying, is there a 5th one yet? So, right, everything kind of goes through that life cycle process. And we are currently in Web 2.0. Well, what's Web 2.0? To understand it, let's first look at Web 1.0. With Web 1.0, what characterized Web 1.0 when the internet and when the World Wide Web first started? What characterized the World Wide Web then was that we had static web pages, and all of the content came from the creators of the web pages, right? And so we would create web pages and publish them, and then that was it, right? Here's this page with content, and it was kind of like a book, but it was online. And so I had to write the book, and then I had to publish the book, right? I had to create the content, and then I published the content, and it didn't change until I, the creator of the page, the developer, went in and manually changed it. Well, Web 2.0, one of the things that really characterizes Web 2.0 is the fact that websites went and web pages went from being static to dynamic. What does that mean? Well, a dynamic web page is a web page that is connected to a database, and it pulls information from a database. And so, you know, even if we just go to my mom's website, let's go look at my mom's website. If we go to my mom's website, watch these 2 houses right here, okay? Every time I refresh this page, bam, you get new 2 houses. You get a new 2 house, you know, 2 new images there. And so that is a dynamic content. Every time you ask for this page from the web server will recreate at least part of this page, and it pulls out 2 new images of houses. So every time you come back to this page, there's some dynamic content on there. It's changing, and I, the creator of this page, do not have to go in there every time and change the image. It just changes automatically. And so having dynamic websites that are connected to databases allowed us to start to do things like personalization, right? And personalization meant that we could tailor things to every individual. So I could log into Facebook, I could post content to Facebook, you know, and then that content would show up to other people. Or I could do that at Wikipedia, right? Every time I come to Facebook, by the way, watch the ads change. Those are all being pulled from a database, right? Every time I come to Facebook. So same thing with like Wikipedia. You know, I could go to Wikipedia and I could log in to Wikipedia and I could start authoring and changing articles. And that's because it's me, you know. So the thing about that is that the content no longer just came from the people who built web pages. The content was now coming from everybody in the world. Everybody in the world could contribute to the content on a web page or a website without having to build web pages. And so that was a real Web 2.0 thing. So one of the things that really characterized Web 2.0 was we had dynamic web pages, meaning the web pages were connected to databases, and that allowed for personalization, right? So, right, personalization is that, you know, a website is personalized for me. When we log into Facebook, we each see a different web page personalized for us, right? So it's personalized for us. And then it's also, it allows users to contribute content. So user-generated content is another aspect of Web 2.0. So those are the main things about Web 2.0. Audio and video were also part of it. Separating content from form is also part of it. And CSS is what allows web designers to do that. So Web 2.0, that's the phrase Web 2.0. You can read about Web 2.0 on Wikipedia. And you can also come down here and you can take a look at Web 3.0. We'll come back to that one just one second. Web 2.0, you know, information at Google and Web 3.0. So now we're getting into the Web 3.0 stuff. So if you search for Web 3.0, you start to see some Web 3.0 results. Like, what is Web 3.0? Is Web 3.0 out there? Right? Just in case you missed it, the web now has version numbers. Nearly 3 years ago, continued hammering over the dot-com crash. That was in 2007, right? So it's still Web 2.0, and yeah, I don't know who actually says it's now Web 3.0. It's just something that sort of colloquially evolves, all right? And yeah, let's look. Web 3.0. Let's see if Wikipedia has a Web 3.0. Web 3.0. Yeah, and it took us back to Web 2.0, and then down here, as part of Web 2.0, it says Web 3.0, right? Definitions of Web 3.0 vary greatly. Some believe its most important features are the semantic web and personalization, focusing on the computer elements. The computer is generating new information rather than humans. Wow, that's cool. The computer is generating new information rather than humans. So now computers are the creators of content. Um, uh, some people consider the semantic web an unrealizable abstraction, see Web 3.0 as the return of experts and authorities on the web. So people are like, what is Web 3.0, right, if that even is out there yet? So really Web 2.0 is the term you need to know. And one important thing that is occurring in web change and this entire thing about semantic web is that the semantic web, and some people say this is Web 3.0, the semantic web is really taking all these different websites and creating a little bit more uniform structure for the data. And so now when you code a web page, we use slightly different elements. And those elements will identify areas within the web page, like this is an article, this is an aside, this is navigation, right? And so that will allow search engines to more easily categorize content in websites. So that's the semantic, which is the study of meaning, like what kind of meaning does each thing on a page have, right? And so some people say that's the beginning of Web 3.0. Anyhow, Web 2.0 is a phrase you're learning in this video. You now know what it is. You know what Web 1.0, characterized by static websites where the creators of the websites were the creators of the content. Web 2.0, characterized by dynamic websites connected to databases, which allowed for personalization and user-generated content. That's Web 2.0.